So, Joe, have you ever felt that the day would ever come where a MLB team would have more healthy quarterbacks on its roster than an NFL team?
What? Is Russell Wilson playing for the Yankees now?
No, Tim Tebow's the one healthy guy. At least if you're counting what the heck happened in Week 12 with the Broncos and
Oh
just
my
the
god.
NFL giving the Broncos the screw job for
That
violating
that's
COVID-19 protocols.
that's the nice way, I guess, of saying that. Like, I mean, we can rewind a little bit more to the Steelers Ravens game that was supposed to take place on Thanksgiving Day, because that was supposed to be like the only good game, and
And then there's
then the
Lions
Ravens
that
like
always.
had a massive outbreak, like worse than the Miami Marlins. It seemed like.
Yeah.
Um, but let's talk about those Thanksgiving games real quick. They were blowouts.
Yeah.
I like that with Deshaun Watson getting that. But the Steelers Ravens, that was delayed. They're like, all right, it'll be Sunday, and then Sunday or Saturday came, and they're like, Monday. And then we're like, okay, next day, it's now Sunday, and we're like, oh, it's gonna be Tuesday, actually. And we're like, okay, Tuesday, maybe, I guess, I don't know. And then it's like, it's gonna be Wednesday. And also, the Ravens have, like, none of their players, and then some of the Steelers lost a couple of their players. Remember, like, all right, the Steelers should be up, like, by 30 points in this game, and then they basically play down to their level,
As they
per
always
usual.
do.
Like I at my job, we have this one customer, and he has this guy that does the pickups and the deliveries. And I'm talking with this guy Scott, and he's a lifelong Steelers fan, and he's like, yeah, I can understand if it's like a couple of years that like, all right, you play to your competition, you like make the games nail biters when they don't need to, but this has been going on for 50 years with the Steelers, and it just doesn't change.
No,
And
it
we
does
don't
not.
know why. It's just like they're like, yeah, you're gonna be super successful, but you're gonna have like 3 heart attacks a game and have to be on blood pressure medication for the rest of your life. But you'll be successful.
I mean, it could be worse. The Seahawks, their defense is pretty
They-
much even worse than that. That
Yeah, the
they'll
Seahawks
score a lot, but
defense, the
nobody
Legion
to
of
say.
Boom used to be like the number one defense for years, and then they just completely fell apart.
Yeah. But getting back to the Denver
Yes,
Broncos,
the Broncos.
For anyone who has not been under the rock the last week, uh, one of their quarterbacks ahead of that on the 28th, Jeff Driscoll, tested positive for COVID-19. Normally that wouldn't be a problem. They'd just move to the next quarterback. The problem is, all three other quarterbacks, Drew Lock, Brett Ripken, and Blake Bortles, all were in close contact with him in the week leading up in violation of NFL protocols. So all four got knocked out ahead of the game, and suddenly heading up into the Saints. It was yes, the
Yes.
Saints. The Broncos had no quarterback, and they're like, well, what do we do? What if we don't have anyone? So all right, we'll just sign one of our offensive coordinators to be a temporary quarterback. League said no, you can't do
Yep.
that. You got to wait a week before someone who you signed gets to it. So they had to turn to what was it? A wide receiver who was
Yeah,
on
he
the
played
practice.
quarterback for like a year or something in college. Uh, it's just, yeah, so he doesn't know the playbook. Uh, he probably hasn't played quarterback in a couple years. And basically, they just didn't do anything that entire game. I mean, it was supposed to be a big blow for the New Orleans Saints losing Drew Brees with all those cracked ribs and punctured lung. They not only have gotten 2 wins these last 2 weeks, but the Buccaneers also lost the game. So this is going way better for what seemed like it was going to be a sprint to the end and a really tough finish.
Yeah. Yeah, in a stark difference to the Steelers game, the Saints basically got a free pass.
Yeah, the Steelers, meanwhile, still haven't had a bye week yet, which is ludicrous because of how many times everyone the Steelers are about to play. They practice really hard all week, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know what? We're going to delay the game a little bit, and basically all that time you spent working really tough and ready for this game, you could have been like resting your bodies, but you know, we'll push it back, but we'll say like it's only like 1 day or 2 days, so then you're like, all right, whatever. But it just keeps killing them. And what's tough is I don't really know how much the Chiefs are really going to lose, because the Chiefs are one tough team. I mean, they had that hiccup against the Raiders, who seem to be on, and then sometimes they're just off. Like, they just got trounced last week. But who do the Chiefs have remaining here? They have Denver, Miami, New Orleans, Atlanta, and the Chargers. And I guess the Saints will be a tough game. They should steamroll the Broncos, who we're just talking about now. Miami should be a win. Atlanta, I guess, which team shows up? I mean, they just trashed the Raiders, but I don't really see the Chiefs losing anything. That's hurting the Steelers, but yeah, well, poor Broncos.
Yeah. They basically had to throw out people saying, like, yeah, we know you're going to die, but please at least make it less painful.
Yeah.
Which you couldn't really do. It was a 31-3 massacre.
Yeah. I'd probably say it probably would have been worse if the Saints probably actually had Drew Brees and, you know, probably tried.
Yeah.
This was probably just like an easy walkthrough. I mean, I didn't really get a chance to watch the game, but I imagine if you don't have this is a quarterback-driven league. It's not like it's the 70s and 80s where, like, quarterbacks weren't, like, they were important, but it was mostly a run-heavy offense. So this is a totally different league right now because they didn't have a quarterback, the most important position on the field. They were screwed, and the Saints were probably just like, all right, we could do whatever we want.
Yeah,
they've gotten lucky so far.
Yeah, there was no way they were gonna win. Blake Bortles should be cleared to play against the Chiefs. Not that the Denver really has much of a chance against Kansas City, but at least they'll throw out a quarterback.
Yeah. Like, at that point, I would have just been like, you know what, I resign. Just give him the game. I don't even want to go out there.
Well,
like the Broncos, I think it was like the wide receiver or something. He like sent out a tweet. He's like, man, I thought like if I closed my eyes, we might do a little bit better or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just embarrassing. They knew it was bad. Like, what? I don't quite understand why they wouldn't have just like one guy like isolated from everybody just in case.
That's what they were supposed to do. What the Broncos did was in violation of what those protections are.
Like, you need to like stick a quarterback in like a Pope Mobile and just be like, you stay in there, here's your prison dinner, and it will just slide it through the little slot here, and you just stay there and watch some Netflix and chill.
Yeah. The biggest rub in it was that the league made the judgment on the last Saturday that there was not a virus spread within the Broncos headquarters, even though 3 people, including Deontay Spencer, tested positive the day after. And if they had said that it was a risk of spread, they would have postponed the game, and then they might not have had quarterback, but if they had swapped around off days like they did in the early part of the season, they might have been able to run out a quarterback. But as I said, the league said niet, and they played and they did their best.
Yep. And with the Ravens, they sort of were allowed to play. They just sort of kept getting the game pushed back.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that was because more of them were testing instead of just like cutting the losses and say, hey, everyone on the practice squad, here's an official game jersey.
Well,
let's go. Like that. That's what the practice squad is for.
Yeah.
at that point, you got to cut your losses because ain't nobody got time for that. We already extended one extra playoff team, which screws up everything. Because usually the top 2 seeds in each conference get a bye week. And the Steelers, like I said, really could use a bye week to really rest and refocus and everything.
Well, I mean, they get a pseudo bye week this week playing against the football team.
But still, they're playing 3 games in 12 days. Like football wears you down, especially if you're playing on turf.
And especially if that's going to be what breaks up this perfect record.
Yep.
The Steelers will have all sorts of complaints to Goodell and company.
Yeah, it's just not crazy. Actually, speaking of complaints to Goodell, that Seahawks Eagles game, some guy bet $500,000 on the Seahawks covering the -6.5 spread, and looked like they were going to do that, and he was going to get a whole bunch of money. But then again, I guess if you have that much money to bet to begin with, I guess it doesn't really matter. But anyway, it looked like the Seahawks were going to pull this off for this guy, make his money, and then the Eagles decided to play some lucky ball, and according to the letter the guy sent, some questionable calls and whatnot, and it was basically like that Hail Mary sort of at the end, and the Eagles stopped that spread, and that guy lost his $500,000.
See, I would never, even if I had that much money, I would not put that much of a risk on something that I have no control or very faint prediction over. That is, he basically blew through like 3 Lamborghinis betting on a football game where you have variations based on who gets hurt, what the wind speed is, the airspeed velocity of an African or European swallow.
Unladen swallow.
Oh yeah, unladen. But anything can change the game. Then again, there was also the mattress mogul that bet on the Astros.
Oh yeah.
In the World Series, won in 2017. Lost even more money, I think, in 2019.
Yeah.
So this stuff is an inexact science.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, what do we have here left in the standings now for football? We still have the Bills leading the AFC East at 8-3, but right on their heels are the Miami Dolphins, who we're still not sure if Tua's like ready to play. I guess he's hurting, and he's been day to day for like the last couple weeks now. So Fitzmagic seems to be taking the reins for the time being. Patriots have won a game now, so that brings them at 5-6. Still in the playoff hunt, but not really.
No. They got a chance if
they have more of a chance if we have to go to a week 18.
Yeah.
So they'll have that maybe. Jets still at 0-11. Oh, man. They had to like make things interesting last week.
Yeah.
They were killing me. Like I was like, all right, they're getting blown out, and then all of a sudden they like made it close. I was like twitching. I'm like, stop winning. Stop scoring points.
But that's because of who they were playing. Of course, when the Jets are playing the Chargers have blown almost as many leads as the if not more than the Falcons.
It's just insane. Steelers at 11-0. Cleveland Browns right behind them at 8-3. Although with 5 games to go and 3 games in hand. And I think they have the better head-to-head matchup, and even in the division. Well, they'd split if the Browns sort of beat them, but the Steelers should have this division locked up. They can lock up the division this week if the Browns lose and the Steelers win. Steelers, I think, as long as they win, they clinch a playoff spot. As would, I believe, Kansas City and the Saints. They would clinch playoff spots as well. Tennessee and the Colts, those guys are still battling it out in the AFC South. The West, Kansas City's probably going to win that. The Houston Astros division, that's still up for grabs. I thought the Giants were or might have walked away with it, but it looks like Daniel Jones is hurt, so I think that hurts their chances. I think Washington football team might have the best shot out of everyone.
You know what's the ironic thing? With that division, the Giants are, if the season ended right now, would have the number 4 seed. Better than the Rams, who are at 7-4. Better than Tampa Bay. Better than the Cardinals, and better than the Vikings, Bears, and 49ers that are on the outside looking in.
Yeah. I mean, we saw the Seattle Seahawks finish 7-9 several years back before the Russell Wilson era, I believe.
Yeah.
And Marshawn Lynch went on that game-stomping, earthquake-shattering touchdown run.
Yeah.
And they stunned the very top team New Orleans Saints, but they were in Seattle because they won their division.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, we know how shitty MetLife Stadium's turf is, according to some football teams.
Well, according to one team in particular.
Yeah, but it's sort of been nudged around, and the Giants might be able to pull it off if the turf plays as the 12th man.
Yeah. But they're also down a quarterback, so
Yeah.
Their path has to go. Right now, their path goes through the Seahawks immediately. Tomorrow, on Sunday, and then from there they have to face the Arizona Cardinals, then the Cleveland Browns, and then finally end against the Ravens and the the Cowboys depends on how the division shakes up, might be an end, but to get to that point, that is a gauntlet to run, especially when you look at the teams chasing them. Like for example, the aforementioned football team. Yes, they're going to lose most likely against the Steelers this week.
They have a shot to beat the 49ers, maybe, and
the 49ers.
Possibly the Panthers and the Eagles.
Yeah.
So I think Washington has the clearest path, if you want to say that, to their division title. So if they beat the 49ers, the Panthers, and the Eagles, that would give them a record of, and add 3 to their 4-7. That would give them 7-7. Where am I missing other games here? Would be the other losses, so there would be 7-9, which would tie the Seattle Seahawks. I forget which year it was, maybe like 2011 or something.
Yeah.
So that's nothing pretty to look at, but hey, you win your division, you get home field advantage for 1 round. So.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the one that actually might be the sneaky one is the Eagles, mainly because their last 2 teams are division matches against the Cowboys and more importantly
Washington
the football team. So if they're within 1, they have the best chance to directly influence the race.
Yeah.
Or at the least play spoiler.
Yeah. So that's still anyone's division. NFC North, probably the Packers. They're at 8-3. Vikings and Bears are at 5-6. Probably not going to catch them. Saints 2 games up in the win column, 3 up in the loss column against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the NFC West, kind of still up for grabs. Seahawks at 8-3, Rams 1 game back, and then Arizona 2 games back from Seattle.
Yeah,
So
right now the NFC West holds 2 of the 3 wild cards.
Yeah.
And depending on what happens with the 49ers, they could potentially, if Tampa Bay somehow falls apart, they could go for a third. Not that.
Yeah, I mean,
hard.
People have been looking, talking about how Brady and Bruce Arians, the head coach, aren't really getting along, and I didn't get to watch the game. I was busy, but my dad was saying Brady just can't complete a deep pass. He doesn't have the arm strength anymore, and that's probably what's going to kill Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see someone go out, but Father Time hits hard. I mean, we saw Peyton Manning be really, really good for a couple of years in Denver, and then, oof, it's like
Yeah.
Who do you want to play, him or Tim Tebow? Who's got the better arm?
I mean, and if you look at all the sports, there are very few people who go out on the top of their career. Like even Derek Jeter, his last 2 seasons, injury wrecked, and then a very pedestrian season. Probably the only one really that went out on top that I can think about the top of my head, Mariano Rivera.
David Ortiz?
Oh, David Ortiz too, yeah.
Ortiz had a monster season.
Yeah. He had definitely a season where they were even talking about, you want to back off retirement?
Yeah, you win another World Series, come on.
Yeah. But in football, especially with how many hits they get, most of the time your injury ends with in the worst way possible. What was it? Who was it? The quarterback, famous quarterback.
Favre?
Not Favre. Way older. Who's Hall of Famer. His career was injured because
Montana.
Oh yeah, Joe Montana. Great quarterback killed because of a pass, and that ended his career. Hard hit wrecked his body. So
it's sad to see these guys go down so early. I'm trying to find some running back who just announced his retirement. He's only like 33. He actually won 3 Super Bowls, 2 with the Patriots and then one with the Eagles over the Patriots.
Yeah, well, while you do that, I want to talk about weed.
What we got to talk about next?
Yeah, well, because we've been talking about football for I think longer than we've ever had on this.
Yeah, I know this
channel,
is
like
crazy. So let's talk about the NBA a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, I guess politics in general. Because apparently it's now I think the Senate passed
the House
or the House, whatever it was. Which surprisingly, I think it said like 6 Democrats said no, but 5 Republicans said yes.
Well, it's the usual politics of Republicans. Some of them are laissez-faire. That they won't like regulation. But this isn't the place to talk about this. We're talking about the NBA and who are starting up next week. Actually, the tip-off on Friday the 11th for preseason starts with the Magic and Hawks, Knicks and Pistons, Rockets and Bulls, Clippers and Lakers, and Kings and Trailblazers. And then the rest of them, you have more preseason games next, and that's all building up for that big start to the season on the 22nd.
Yes.
Where the Nets will host the Warriors and the Lakers will host the Clippers. Ahead of that, the NBA has made modifications to its health and safety guidelines, which talk about since they're now not going to be a bubble. So they're they're traveling, with the exception of the Raptors, who will be in Tampa Bay. And but some of the things that they won't be allowed. They won't be allowed to enter bars, lounges, clubs, live entertainment, or gaming venues, with some exceptions. Public gyms, spas, pools, large indoor social gatherings of 15 or more people, unless that's already been banned by the local government, which a lot of them are. A quote-unquote approved restaurants with outdoor seating or a quote fully privatized space indoors will be allowed to eat. The restaurants will be revealed at a later date. Twice a week testing for household members of players and staff. But the biggest thing that was said is that they are not testing for weed or marijuana. This
devil's lettuce.
That they are not going to test with it, and probably because they're already up to their neck with COVID tests. But this also leads into long-standing demands for the last several years from NBA players, saying that as states are decriminalizing it, the leagues should do it too. And NBA, I believe, is the first league.
Yes, I believe so.
They're the first ones to decriminalize it.
Although the NFL should. That way, these players just like stay in their bedrooms and get high instead of beating their wives. But you know.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, in MLB it's still subject to penalty, but you haven't really seen.
Yeah.
That was really a problem in the 80s and hasn't been since. Mainly because of HGH. But
yeah. I mean, then again, do you want to test all the baseball players from like the 60s and whatnot when they were all up on like cocaine and everything else?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of things you could say, but yeah, this is a
bit of a groundbreaking move. Whether they'll test for it following season in 21-22, I guess that's up for future Two Political Bros.
Well, that's not just Two Political Bros. That stuff is baked into the players' agreement, so that would have to have a modification for that. But it's a big deal as the country is changing its policy of what's normal and what's not. That now it's the leagues once again catching up. You see that in the MLB with the Players Alliance starting to drum up what has been a big problem with the MLB, which is that with black and other African American and players going to basketball and football, the MLB's African American percentage is lower than it has been since the 60s.
Yikes.
Over 50 years. Now, of course, that also is contribute with there's like a 22% Hispanic ratio as well, and especially this year with I think there are like 7 or 8 players being posted from Korea and Japan. It's not like there's a lack of diversity, but it is startling for the league that was the first to break the color barrier to have that such a low representative, especially when you have great current African American players like Aaron Judge, Kyle Lewis. A year ago, CeCe Sabathia.
Aaron Judge.
Yeah, he's African. He was adopted.
What? Wait, the right fielder for the Yankees.
Yes. Or am I getting that wrong?
The right fielder for the Yankees, Aaron Judge. He's white.
Is he? I thought he was half, like with.
No.
With. I don't know. I know his parents are adopted, so.
Yeah.
They.
I guess I never really noticed.
Yeah, I mean, he has like that Derek Jeter. Look. So I would assume.
Oh yeah, Judge is biracial.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what.
I guess I just never noticed because I didn't really judge.
I guess also because it never really was an issue with.
I think the first thing that stands out is his height.
Yeah, among other things. But yeah, the more you know. Other news going around. NHL.
Well, I was gonna say for the NBA, we were talking about Russell Westbrook. Looking to get traded, and he got swapped with John Wall from the Washington Wizards. So John Wall really hasn't played the last 2 years, and he's sort of like a little disgruntled because he wanted to be the face of the Wizards, and I think it was Bradley Beal was sort of taken over while Wall sort of kept recovering from injuries.
Yeah.
So he was sort of shipped out to Houston to theoretically work with James Harden, but James Harden still wants out of Houston and looks like he wants to go to, I think, the Nets, where Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are. So I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think it would be too much of a problem if Harden went there, because Kyrie's very good at ball handling. We've seen him play second fiddle to LeBron and win a championship, and while he didn't want to sit behind LeBron, I think he'd welcome it more with Kevin Durant and James Harden there. And we've seen Kevin Durant have no problem playing with Steph Curry and Draymond Green and those guys with the Warriors. So I don't think it would be as much of a conflict as we saw with Westbrook and Harden in Houston, because those two guys have to be the center of everything between the two of them. So that was just chaos ensuing, but it looks like Houston might still unload Harden as well. The Celtics had a sign-in trade with Gordon Hayward, so they have I think $28 million in sign whoever they want cap space. So look out for the Celtics to possibly make a move in the coming weeks as the season begins.
Do you think that if they do that, the Celtics will finally get over the great but just fall short?
They picked up some good pieces like Tristan Thompson and whatnot, losing some key pieces. I'm not sure. It really hinges on what some of these last minute moves are. Like I said, if Harden goes to the Nets, that's gonna hurt. I mean, Westbrook is now where's the standings here? By the division. So Washington is not in the East, but I always think it is, but it's not. It's in the Southeast. So Washington would still have some fun there trying to fight the Heat over there, but once you get into it, that's another team that the Celtics would have to go through, although Westbrook really hasn't had too much success in the playoffs, so not sure how that'll go. Anthony Davis signed a 5-year, I think $190 million extension with the Lakers to keep him there. He said it was basically an injury insurance because he said, hey, I have injury histories. Maybe I should sign a long-term deal instead of a 2-year deal and try and get a super mega extra ultimate contract, because I don't understand how NBA contracts work. There's max, super duper max, I don't know.
Why can't it be like baseball, where it's like, here's your money?
Yeah. It makes no sense. Like when you're making trades, you have to have the exact same amount of money being traded away. Yeah. It's like, what? Like
it's the good old Full Metal Alchemist that you must offer a arm and a leg if you want to resurrect your mother.
Yeah.
And then you fail anyway. So you just lost your brother and your arm and leg, and you still don't have your mother.
Although Karl Anthony Towns has lost 9 family members to COVID.
Ooh.
So he lost his mother, and he said he loved playing the game because playing put a smile on his mom's face, and he said that was the best thing out there. So he's like, it's not going to be therapy getting back out on the court. It's going to be really tough. So I'm not sure what kind of mindscape he's going to be in. He's a pretty well-liked player from what I've seen, so it's just sort of kind of tough that he's lost all these really close family members.
So. That was not the segue I was expecting with my
comparison.
Let's move on to.
But let's segue to hockey.
What is hockey?
They have. Because we're getting conflicting reports now. It was supposed to be that the owners were like, hey, we're going to want more money, even though we said we're going to stand put when we rejoined 5 months ago. And now there's reports saying that wasn't a thing, and I don't know. You want to take it from here? Because my head hurts listening to this.
According to ESPN, the NHL is hitting the same problem that MLB hit over the spring and summer. The owners want more financial changes to protect them, given that the pandemic is still going to run through most of the season and the players are not budgeted. Although some sources had said that the Players Association will be willing to work with the NHL as long as the owners are willing to give them something. So give and take, usual stuff. At the moment, the January 1st start is dead. There is no way they'll be able to get that in time at this date.
There's so many players overseas that have to come over, quarantine for 2 weeks, and then get into actual skating shape. Because they're quarantining, they can't really be skating. They can do jumping jacks and stuff like that, and but nothing beats actually being on the ice.
Not only that, they might have to do a radical realignment to get around the Canadian border, putting the Canadian teams in one division and the American teams in another division, and then basically punt that problem down until the end of the season, which at this point is looking at a mid-January start date with either a 52 or 56 game schedule at best. But considering that they're still figuring out the CBA, that could be even less. We could even be looking at like a 45 or 40 game season.
Or maybe even a full lockout. Who knows?
Yeah, which would be absolutely devastating. Like, especially when we were talking about that in terms of baseball back over the summer, when it was looking really bad.
Yeah, I mean the Yankees, the New York Rangers, they had the number 1 pick, Alexis Lafreniere, pardon my French, and well, he's one of those like French Canadians. So he's the number 1 pick. They have Capo Caco, who they picked number 2 overall the year before. And these guys are both young enough to play on the Junior Worlds team to, like, get a little bit more skating time, get accustomed to more things, be in more shape. But the Rangers said no, mostly because they're hoping to have the players all ready. They don't want to loan them out and then risk an injury. So I understand that aspect, but I know these young players are eager and ready to play, and they probably want to play for their national teams. But if you're not being allowed and you're supposed to be given a better opportunity in the NHL, then I guess you wait. But
I will say there is one quirk that might come out of a shortened season, and that is that many teams are considering, once the season done, in order to get some people into the gates, and have some sort of crowd in, some teams are considering an outdoor home schedule. For example, the Kings and Ducks are considering the Dignity Health Sports Park, home of the LA Galaxy. The Bruins are looking at Fenway Park, and the Penguins are in talks with the Steelers and the Pirates about using their.
The only thing about
fields.
those outdoor games is I don't think a lot of the players really like it, because like the ice isn't as controlled as it is when it's indoors. The sun can be a big glaring problem, pun intended, and it's just sort of like frustrating. I remember a couple of years ago when the Rangers played, they had their outdoor game. They were basically told the game was just like the one side of the ice was just so wet and melty that everyone was scoring on that side because the puck was just slipping and sliding through there. Both teams weren't really happy. I mean, it happens not every time, but like it's just it's a cool experience and whatnot, but it's just you can't do that for all the games.
It's more novelty than a regular. Other teams talking about it are the Carolina Hurricanes, the Dallas Stars, Nashville Predators, and the Florida Panthers. But also not talking about it is that this might be all moot if the local government say you still can't have a crowd because of the virus. Especially places like California and Massachusetts, I could see that happening. But we'll see. That's among other things. And I guess probably as we're running near time, one of the last things that I want to talk about is a little bit of baseball, because we can't leave without talking a bit about baseball. Not much has been going on. The most active team right now have been the Braves and the Mets. The Braves having gotten Drew Smyly and Charlie Morton, and the Mets signing Trevor May, and then being in talks with James McCann, George Springer, and Trevor Bauer. But the interesting thing I want to talk about is why no one seems to want to take that front office job with the Mets. That Steve Cohen has been having a hard time finding a general manager. They were first looking at both president of baseball operations and a general manager, but they now have focused just on general managers. So now I want to take a bit of time for the list of the people that have been talked to, they tried to talk to, and have turned them down. Indians general manager Mike Chernoff chose not to pursue the president of baseball ops. They looked into Chris Young as their general manager, the former lanky pitcher who was working in the front office. He spurned them and went to the Rangers, who no one thought were looking for a general manager at the time. Yeah. That broke the other day. They've been in talks with the Oakland, but that's been held up because of the situation with Billy Beane.
What about Theo Epstein?
Theo Epstein, they would have loved to have him. Same with the Phillies, but Theo said he's taken a year off from baseball, so that's bad luck for both of those.
Because I was gonna say, I would have thought Theo would have been a great fit for the Mets. He's given all this money. He's basically here to make a championship here and now, and I mean he basically did that with the Cubs. I mean it took him a couple of years, but he's got a proven track record. I mean I guess if you're a little burnt out, you're a little burnt out. So maybe the Mets only have the GM for 1 year, and they're like, hey, do what you need to do, but if not, you're done after this year.
Yeah. Well, that's what Sandy Alderson is right now. He's kind of the interim. He's the interim guy that's gonna smooth everything over at the time. Michael Hill, the former Marlins executive, also turned down the role. So right now they're looking at maybe J.P. Ricciardi, the former Blue Jays GM, or circle back to Oakland. But it's kind of surprising that with all the hype and all the old deep pockets that they're going, that no one seems to be chomping at the bit to join the team.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We might be talking next week. The only other thing is that a lot of pundits predict a continuation of an ice cold free agency period with DJ LeMahieu as the only sure bet at the top free agents to sign before the new year. Maybe George Springer, but they're predicting guys like Trevor Bauer, Marcell Ozuna, and others to just bide their time, wait till January as teams figure out more what the season's going to look like and what their finances might be.
Yeah.
They might even see a situation where like 2018 or 2019, where Harper and Machado both waited until spring training to sign.
Yeah, they played like chicken.
Yeah. They were going to get their contract anyway. They were just
it was just a matter of who's going to sign first.
Yeah, so Bauer might, the middle guys might not, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, and then I guess the last thing, I mean I don't follow college football too closely, but most of the top teams have played like 9-10 games already this season. But Ohio State's only playing their 5th game. Granted, they're up 38-7 as we're recording with a minute to go in the third. They've only played 4 games, but yet they're still considered one of the favorites to make the 4-team playoffs for college football, because college football likes to vote in for who's the top team.
They put their thumb on the scales. That's what.
Yeah. So Ohio State, while they have Justin Fields, who's one of the top-rated quarterbacks in college right now, whether that translates to the NFL or not, time will tell. But yes, they have a good team, but at the same time, they're going to get their 5th win over Michigan State, because Michigan State is trash right now. So, they probably have a good enough team to do that, but I don't think they'd win it. I don't think they've won enough games. I don't think they've earned it. That's sort of like my stance with Patrick Mahomes not being better than Russell Wilson yet. They haven't had their time. That's just sort of, I don't know if that's like an old school sort of stance on me. but I just don't think they deserve to be in it. But there is like with Clemson that they lost to Notre Dame, and it's like, oh well, they have that one loss that might hurt them, that might keep them out. It's like, yeah, but they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, and it was still a close game against Notre Dame, who's now ranked at number 2. Who, as long as they win out, they'll finish number 2. Alabama will finish number 1 as they finish undefeated. But Clemson should definitely still be up there, regardless, because they probably would have beaten the crap out of Notre Dame if Trevor Lawrence was there and they didn't have that sort of COVID scare and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so NFL football's kind of a mess. College basketball's a thing. Hopefully Siena beats Marist.
Yeah. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for this week.
Yep.
It's been a pleasure as always.
Yes, it has been.
Wash your hands, stay safe, wear a mask, all that stuff, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.